That's verse 55. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Ballava Giribaradhare Gopi Jana Ballava Giribaradhare Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachare Yamuna Tira Vanachare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Ballava Giribaradhare Gopi Jana Ballava Giribaradhare Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachare Yamuna Tira Vanachare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada. Jaya Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajakacharyas Tanasashismad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki ISKCON Samstapakacharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Sri Sri Radha Radhanath Ki Sri Giri Govardhan Ki Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu Ki Sankirtan Yagya Ki Go Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 21. Conversation between Manu and Karadama. Text 55. Adharmash cha sumedheta lolupar vyankushar nribhe shayane twai loko yam dasyo grasto vinankshyate adharmascha samedheta lolupaya vyankushar nirphe shayane twai loko yam dasyugrasto vinankshyate adharmascha samedheta lolupaya vyankushar nirphe shayane twai loko yam dasyugrasto vinankshyate. Matajis. Adharma, unrighteousness, cha, and samedheta would flourish, lolopai, simply hankering after money, vyankushai, uncontrolled, nribhe, by men, shayane twaye, when you lie down for rest, loka, world, ayam, this, dasyo, by the miscreants, grasta, attacked, vanangshyate, it will perish. Translation: if you gave up all thought of the world's situation, unrighteousness would flourish, for men who hanker only after money would be unopposed. Such miscreants would attack, and the world would perish. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Because the scientific division of 4 varnas and 4 ashrams is now being extinguished, the entire world is being governed by unwanted men who have no training in religion, politics, or social order. And it is in a very deplorable condition. In the institution of 4 varnas and 4 ashrams, there are regular training principles for the different classes of men. Just as in the modern age, there's a necessity for engineers, medical practitioners, and electricians, and they're properly trained in different scientific institutions. Similarly, in former times, the higher social orders, namely the intelligent class, the Brahmins, the ruling class, the Kshatriyas, and the mercantile class, the Vaishyas, were properly trained. Bhagavad Gita describes the duties of the Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Sudras. When there is no such training, one simply claims that because he's born in a Brahmin or Kshatriya family, he is therefore a Brahmin or a Kshatriya, even though he performs the duties of a Sudra. Such undue claims to being a higher caste man make the system of scientific social orders into a caste system, completely degrading the original system. Thus society is now in chaos, and there is neither peace nor prosperity. It is clearly stated herein that unless there is the vigilance of a strong king, impious, unqualified men will attain a certain status in society, and that will make the social order perish. Adharmas cha samedhe ta lolapa vyankashanyrape shayane twai loko yam dasyugrasto vinangshati. If you gave up all thought of the world's situation, unrighteousness would flourish, for men who hanker only after money would be unopposed. Such miscreants would attack, and the world would perish. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastyatya Deshatarne Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Shivasani Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Vanchakapaturibhyas Jayakripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patidanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. So this verse is talking about, and the purport, talking about the situation today. It is more or less exactly in the degraded condition which Kardama Muni is warning about. He's speaking, of course, to Swayambhuva Manu, who is like the original ruler, the original king, original head of state. And Swayambhuva Manu, of course, is extremely qualified in all sorts of ways. In all sorts of ways. His qualification is very broad and very deep. But particularly, he has his position, and he knows his position, that he is the ruler. He is the ruler. And therefore he has to conduct things in certain very specific ways. Actually, he knows a lot more than just ruling. He knows scripture. He knows spiritual principles. Ultimately, he knows Krishna, because he's a very great pure devotee, or even when Lord Caitanya, in his instructions to Sanatana Goswami, at the end, in the last 5 chapters or so of the Madhya Lila of Chaitanya Charitamrita, when Lord Chaitanya describes the different avatars, incarnations of the Lord who appear within this world, he describes 6 categories, 6 types of incarnations, avatars, and one of them is called the Manvantara avatars. Manvantara avatars actually means, it's referring to the Manus, all the Manus. So not only is Swayambhuva Manu a great devotee, but he is, according to Lord Chaitanya, at least in a certain sense of the term, he is considered an avatar, an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You cannot get more qualified than that in any respect. So, therefore, Kardama Muni, well, you've been reading the last few days. Kardama Muni has been glorifying, and here again, he glorifies Swayambhuva Manu in very vivid terms, that you are just so special. You are so extremely special. And if it wasn't for you, and for you doing your duty properly, the world would become a disaster. As Kadama says in this verse, the world would perish. How strong is that language? It's extremely strong. And of course, if we look around us, then we see that it is happening today. It is happening today. You have leaders, of course different leaders are on different levels, but definitely some of them are simply interested in money only, really. At least it's their main interest, and that means not just money in general, but money for themselves. And they're making all sorts of clever arrangements to achieve that. And generally they're getting away with it, because when you're ruling, you can get away with a lot, with really a lot. So, just like, maybe we shouldn't say, but just like the current ruler of America, we can just refer to him as such, the ruler. He has made special arrangements so that the big businessmen who earn lots of money, the most money, they pay less tax. He happens to be one of them. He happens to be one of them. In other words, he's definitely facilitating himself. And now, of course, in the world, everyone is faced with this totally, I would say, practically totally unexpected disaster, and just very extreme disaster. I can say, having been around for some years, I missed the Second World War in this lifetime, but having seen a few problems, as far as I can see, this is by far the greatest problem the world has faced in my lifetime. It's unprecedented. But now the ruler, that ruler, here in South Africa, our ruler, or the rulers, they're sort of trying to some degree, I think better than that one in America. But that one in America, he doesn't know what he's doing. It's amazing. It's amazing. So unqualified. In order to rule a country, there has to be some qualification. In order to do anything, there has to be a qualification. In order just to read a book, there has to be qualification. In order just to play cartels, in order to use a spoon or a knife and fork, there has to be some qualification. Maybe not a lot, but it has to be there, whatever it is. Otherwise, the person becomes just sort of lost. They become lost, even in what is generally a relatively simple situation. So what to speak of ruling a country of millions or even hundreds of millions or even more human beings, every single one of whom has their own ideas and desires and ambitions. What to speak of doing that expertly? Therefore, one thing which is said, rule particularly, how to rule and help the people, and like this. And so he used that expertise with Kamsa. But if, Kamsa was one of the big powerful warrior types and a ruler, but he was very big and very powerful. And Vasudeva, Kshatriya, if he had thought, well, I'm a Kshatriya, I meant to defend people, because Kshatriya literally means shat. Kshat means pain, hurt. And triya is a variation on the verb trayate, which means to protect. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, what is it? Trayate mahato bayat, neha bikramanashasti pratyavayana vijate, swalpamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bayat. Chapter 2, verse 40, I think. So, yes, so trayate is the verb, means to protect. That if you engage in devotional service, Krishna is saying in that verse, then even a little advancement, even you don't become some pure devotee, great self-realized Krishna-conscious person, just a little advancement on this path can save you or protect you from mahato bayat, the greatest fear. Trayate, it'll protect you from the greatest type of fear, which means to take birth, to lose the human form of life, and to take birth in the animal species. This is the greatest type of fear. So Kshatriya means those who protect people from pain, from being hurt, being abused, like this. So anyway, Kamsa, he was big, powerful man. And if Vasudeva had thought, yes, I am Kshatriya, this is my wife, I must protect her, there's just no question of whether I should protect her or not, I must protect her, therefore I will now fight with Kamsa and try and protect her. That would have been suicidal. It would have simply been suicidal, because Kamsa was he was physically practically like a monster. But Vasudeva was not like that. He was a minister. He was Kshatriya. So he was not like some little weakling, but against someone like Kamsa, who, there's interesting histories of Kamsa in different Puranas. Kamsa was such a warrior. He had defeated Lord Indra, the king of the demigods. He had defeated all those different demons who went to try to kill Krishna, Bakasura, Agasura, and company, so many of them. All of them Kamsa had defeated in battle, but he didn't kill them. He sort of accepted them. They became members of his team, and they started serving under him. So Kamsa was so powerful. Not just your ordinary, so to speak, ordinary Kshatriya. He was one of the most powerful people in the universe. And Vasudeva knew that. These things were well known. Kamsa even had a name, I forget the exact name, but he who defeated Indra. So it was well known. Vasudeva knew that. And if just in the spirit of, Kshatriya, protect my wife, must do it, whatever whatever it comes to, I have to do it because it's my duty. It was simply suicidal. Yes, so anyway, Kshatriyas, to be an effective Kshatriya, particularly ruling a country, there's a very specific qualification required. And as Prabhupada points out, in the institution of 4 varnas and 4 ashrams, there are regular training principles. These people were trained from childhood, practically from birth, in whatever was the tradition of the particular family they were born in. And they were born in those families in terms of karma because they had the specific nature of the particular family they were born in. Now, nowadays it's just haphazard. It's just haphazard. So then they were trained even from childhood, like in a Brahmin family. The little boy, if the father was doing yagyas, which was a common engagement for a Brahmin, the little boy, as just a preschool child, would assist in this way and that and get things and learn the procedure. So the Kshatriyas, even as children, they were trained. They were trained in many things. They're also trained in the Vedic scriptures. And therefore they were twice born. They would receive second initiation. It was standard for a Kshatriya. But they were trained also how to be Kshatriyas. And then when they became adults, and particularly when they, their fathers would hand over to them, the Kshatriyas, the kingdom, ruling the kingdom, the father would hand over, oftentimes or generally when the son was maybe 30, something like that, 40, mature person with so many years of training and already experience assisting the father, then when that young man, or sort of, you could say, early middle-aged man, would take over ruling the kingdom, you couldn't really be better prepared. So nowadays, anyway, you know the situation, so we don't need to sort of rant on about it. But these things are not going on. These things are not going on. Rather, just by making promises that you vote for us and we will give you this and this and this. Give us your shopping list. Give us your shopping list. And we will, whatever it is, we will promise you it. And then they get elected. Because you know what happened? If we understand the history, how democracy began and why it began, we might not have thought about it so much, why it began. But the thing is this, that previously, like in Europe, they had a sort of a varnashram system, definitely had to some degree, by birth. So if someone was the son of the king, he'd become the king, even if he was a fairly useless type of person. That was the system. And so when you get fairly useless types of people trying to rule a country, many people become upset. But what could you do? You can't wait for the next election and get him voted out. If there's a king, it's for life. So they'd be forced to have revolutions. And revolutions are, they're nasty things. In fact, there's one saying I read many years ago from one, I don't know, sort of philosopher, political philosopher or someone. He said that revolution can only happen when living becomes worse than dying. Because revolution means there's a good chance you're going to die. Particularly if you're a prominent revolutionary, they'll be after you. So that was how it was working. There were so many revolutions and so many kings got kicked out or killed and so on and so forth. Like in Shakespeare's Julius Caesar, if you ever studied Shakespeare, according to that, in the Julius Caesar play, as everyone. So nowadays you get Brahmins, people born in families that are traditionally Brahminical families, and they have Brahminical surnames, family names, but they're just business people. They're just business people. That's all. Or even some of them are just Sudras, but they're very attached. Yes, I am Brahmin. Let me give you one example. That in Vrindavan town, there is a taxi operation. There's the owner, and he has his taxis and the different drivers who drive people. And in this way, money is being made and people are being trafficked around. So, one day we needed a taxi to go from Vrindavan to Karoli, where Madan Mohan is now, and then to Jaipur. It's a little off the beaten track, and after you've been to Karoli, you got to get yourselves back on the road to Jaipur. So we went to this fellow who we know, and he gave us a taxi and a driver. So there we are now. We're in the vehicle, off we go. And so we ask the driver in broken Hindi, well, maybe not so broken, at least, Aapka naam kya hai? That's not broken Hindi. Aapka naam kya hai? What's your name? And our driver said, Pandit Ji. And then, from under a dirty shirt, he pulled out a thread. Pandit Ji. And so I said, oh, aap Brahmin hai? Ha, Hanji. May Brahmin ho. Okay, all right. Anyway, just drive. So off we went. And sure enough, Pandit Ji got us to Karoli. We had nice darshan of Madan Mohan. Now we got to drive out through the sort of country roads back onto the main road to Jaipur. So away we go. And we came to a fork. You could either go left, not like a T-junction, just a Y fork. Either you could go left or you could go right. And there was a sign in Hindi only with the names of the towns in the different directions. So somehow or other I can read the language. So I look at the sign and we see, oh yeah, Jaipur. There's the sign, Jaipur this way. And there were like half a dozen signs to different places. But there's the arrow, Jaipur this way. Pandit Ji stopped the car in front of the sign, and he looked at it. I said, Panditji, look, huh? Jaipur, huh? Jaipur. And Panditji looked at it. You know, he didn't want to take instruction from a foreigner. Panditji got out of the car, and there was some chap walking by, and he asked him, which is the road to Jaipur? And the man, I guess he's a local man, he pointed in that direction. And okay, Panditji got back in the car. And I realized that Panditji is not only just living as a Sudra, and a dirty one at that, Panditji is illiterate. And you don't really get illiterate Brahmins. No. It's practically the first qualification of a Brahmin to be very literate. Yeah. So, it's just one example, but it's a little bit of an extreme example. But even here in South Africa, amongst the Indian community, what to speak of in India, you get people like that from these different families, like particularly Brahmin families, but now they're business people. They're business people. And some of them are not even business people, they're basically Sudras. Yeah. So what is needed, though, is training. Training is practically the most foundational thing for the development of a person. Without training, if it's just sort of, make the most of it as you go, well, some may do better than others, but it's not going to be the same as if people are trained and trained and trained. Then you'll get highly qualified people coming, and society, at least in the sense of like with Swayambhuva Manu, a Kshatriya, a ruler, society will be managed properly, and the people will be much happier. At least many more people will be much happier than they are today. So therefore, Kardama Muni is pointing out that your role in society is so important. If it wasn't for you, one man, if it wasn't for you, society, human society would just fail, and life would become hell. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada came. Any comment or question? Maharaj, enlighten us. Sudhamada Prabhu. Ram Vijay Prabhu. There he is, yeah.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, there is a question from Mayapur TV, one of the viewers.
Oh, really? Okay.
Manu Das. Hare Krishna Maharaj, I would like to know if Varna Ashram is possible in this age, as we try to glide down in qualifications from Brahmana to Vaishya, lastly Sudras.
Okay, that's it, yeah. It's possible. It's possible. Prabhupada addresses this in so many places. And even there's a famous saying of Prabhupada's that 50% of what he wanted to do was to re-establish Varnashram. Of course, strictly, purely on the basis of Krishna consciousness. So, and also it's interesting, an interesting place where you can find some reference it's the end, the last 6 or however many, some number of verses in the 10th chapter of the 9th canto of the Bhagavatam. Yeah. And Prabhupada refers in different ways to this type of situation, and how even in Kali Yuga, human society can become wonderful if people act properly on the basis of Krishna consciousness. Like Lord Ram was the ideal husband. He was also the ideal ruler. Mother Sita was the ideal wife. And Prabhupada makes that point, that if people were qualified and carried out their duties in those types of ways, then human society would become practically heavenly, you could say. Yeah. So it's definitely an important part of what we're trying to do. But it has to be done in Krishna consciousness. There has to be a strong foundation of Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, as Lord Caitanya says in Chaitanya Charitamrita, if there's an attempt at Varnashram without Krishna, it's called Asuri Varnashram, as opposed to Daivi Varnashram. Daivi meaning divine, godly Varnashram. Asuri Varnashram, the same thing, but without the Supreme Lord underpinning the whole thing. Then, well, Asuri, of course, means demoniac. And it will fail. It'll fail badly. Yes. So the thing is that first of all, Krishna consciousness has to be there as a foundation strongly. Yeah. And then it can be built on with the development of Varnashram. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Thank you. Manu Das, yeah?
Yes.
Manu Das. Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
We read in Bhagavad Gita, Guna Karma Vibhagasha, that your position is not based on birth, but rather quality and activity. But we find in bygone ages, generally the child or the son of the Brahmin or the son of the Kshatriya, they were Kshatriyas, they were Brahmins. They were naturally, it wasn't like, so there was something about birth.
Yes.
Can you expand on that as well?
Yes, definitely. Well, we mentioned that in, bygone ages, when the Vedic society, Krishna conscious Vedic society was just, that was society, then because the families were so qualified, then children would be born into those families which had the same qualification. Actually the principle is there today, because the families have certain types of qualifications, in inverted commas, certain types of natures, means degraded in different ways. So in so many cases, children who are degraded in the same ways from the previous lifetime, they're born into that family which is degraded more or less in the same type of way they're degraded. This is, how birth, the process of birth happens, at least, in many ways. So yes, it was like that. If you were born in a particular type of Brahmin family, generally the person would be that type of Brahmin. But the problem is that there are different social, financial, different types of advantages, particularly to being in the higher varnas. There are different types of advantages, and but to maintain the qualification, you have to work hard. You have to be trained and then retrained, and there's ongoing training, and there's just an ongoing program of life. If you want to maintain your role, maintain the qualification of being a proper Brahmin, who then is naturally glorified, and whatever other advantages come the way of such a qualified Brahmin or Kshatriya. So the thing is that as Kali Yuga progressed, or began even, and progressed, then the people became attached to the benefits, but they didn't want to make the effort, or maybe it became more difficult to make the effort. Yes, anyway, like that. And therefore, they started losing the qualification, but they're still attached. There's actually like attachment to the benefit. I was reading, it's in Srila Baladev Vijayabhushan's commentary on Bhagavad Gita. He describes how a person falls down from the mode of goodness to the mode of passion, specifically. So he says, it's a sort of simple point, but it's very interesting, that when you're in the mode of goodness, one of the great characteristics is happiness. It's one of the great characteristics of the mode of goodness. So the person in the mode of goodness is getting that happiness. It's very nice. But and as time goes on, the person in the mode of goodness becomes attached to having that goodness. And then, the way he describes it is that on the basis of the increased and step-by-step increasing attachment to the happiness, one falls into passion, that I want to maintain the happiness. How am I going to do it? To make plans. One gradually falls into passion through trying to maintain the happiness. Does that make sense? Does it make sense to you? Anyway, that's what he says, that attachment arises, and rather than just get the happiness just like it just comes, just spontaneously comes, rather than live in such a way that the happiness just comes, you don't have to make a special effort because you're in the mode of goodness, it's just there. But then, it's nice happiness. Yeah, I must keep this happiness. And rather than just follow the program of the mode of goodness, which without any separate endeavor gives happiness, then they start making a separate endeavor to maintain the happiness, and they fall into passion through that endeavor. Hare Krishna. Is that okay? Hari Bol. Srila Prabhupada ki